peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
The government continues to enroll several programs aimed at realization of the universal healthcare cover, one of the most critical pillars under the Big Four agenda. This major policy shift on the country's healthcare carries heavy dividends for the future well-being of the people and the economy too. The universal healthcare coverage under the ambitious Big Four agenda blueprint by President Uhuru Kenyatta aims to bring all Kenyans under universal healthcare coverage by the end of 2022. Since 2018, the government has initiated several universal health coverage projects to ensure that its target milestones under the Big Four agenda is achieved. The first pilot phase of Universal Healthcare Access Program, which was rolled across 4 counties in 2019, expanded healthcare access to up to 3.2 million Kenyans, an indicator that with heightened public-private partnerships, universal healthcare access for all Kenyans is attainable. In Nairobi, the Nairobi Metropolitan Services NMS has been significantly instrumental in fast-tracking a number of UHC-related projects. The NMS works under the directive of the Office of the President and has been able to complete several UHC-related projects. These include establishment of new hospitals as well as improving the capacity of the existing ones. Many of the new facilities that NMS has established are already offering not only primary healthcare services but also advanced medical care services to Kenyans from across all socio-economic strata. It is estimated that up to 2.5 million Kenyans living in the informal settlements across Nairobi can now afford quality primary healthcare services from the already completed healthcare facilities by the NMS.
If you count all Mukurus, the population is around 500,000. There was only one clinic that had 7 beds in it, run by a Catholic institution. And I felt ashamed as a government officer visiting our slums, finding women being given 1 hour to deliver and go home because there is no enough space and time. So we are now making 24 hospitals, and I'm glad to announce that we have opened the 4 hospitals fully equipped with modern equipment, including theater. And I want to tell you, we completed all those hospitals in less than 4 months. So hii ya kusikia ati gender based house itachukua 2 years. Kwani tunaishi kwa moon?
So this is really just a small glimpse of the plans that we have for this great city that is our capital city, and that is really the core of our economy. And our hope and our prayer is that we are going to be able to make a city in which every single Kenyan can be proud of, but more so, where every single resident of Nairobi can feel catered for and serviced, regardless of where he or she is born, regardless of where he or she comes from. They have all the services that any citizen living in this city is entitled to.
These milestones that the UHC pillar under the Big Four agenda has achieved reinforces the belief that with more public-private partnerships and support, the vision of accessible and quality healthcare for all Kenyans is indeed possible. Very good morning to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. This is Good Morning Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and it is a pleasure to have you on board. And I'll take us through quickly the headlines, and then we'll start our conversation. We'll start with the Daily Nation, and the main headline on the Daily Nation this morning: Enter the politics of Father Christmas populism, not genuine solutions to the country's problems, is dominating the campaigns. Politicians jostling to get ahead in the election to succeed President Kenyatta are promising goodies without offering clear policy proposals. The story is on page 4 of the Daily Nation, and just up there, most severely ill COVID patients unvaccinated in one hospital. All 4 patients in ICU are yet to get the jab. The story is on page 10, and I think this is something that Kenyans should understand. A lot of them are still very reluctant, even with the fact that we do have enough vaccine in the country, but some Kenyans are still very reluctant to go get vaccinated. So from this report, which we shall look at shortly, when you have the boost, your immune system is much better to handle COVID-19. And so we see that all of the patients who are in ICU, according to the reports from the different hospitals, all of them have not been vaccinated. So that is something that Kenyans need to understand. Troubled in Fort Kenya as spiral meetings halted. The story is on page 8 of the Daily Nation. High cost deny many parenthood. The story is on page 14. Tycoon, not your dad, court tells man. The story is on page 11. And climate, Kenya signs treaties to protect forest. The story is on page 12 of the Daily Nation. And then we turn our attention to the Star newspaper. And the main headline, Iron Lady at Heart of 2022 poll battle. She is being fronted as Mount Kenya Queen, Pin, and a Deputy President. And that will be the Kenya leader, Martha Karua. And Africa is the future. Invest in it. Uhuru to Scottish businesses. The story is on page 2. Arrested Ugandan hides 3 million Kenya shillings heroin in cans of potato crisps. The story is on page 3. Fort Kenya in turmoil as rivals hold parallel meetings today. And the story is on page 7. And Jack and Jill millionaire withdraws case against DPP Haji. The story is on page 6 of the Star newspaper. We turn our attention now to the Standard newspaper. And the main headline, political futures of men. And they are fiercely loyal. At one time, they're carriers of hard-hitting messages. Their party leaders can't bring themselves to speak. At other times, they serve as emissaries, testing waters and doing defectors to their camps. For them, the mantra is gather all, scatter none. And you can see Susan Kihika is leading that group. Aisha Jumwa, Aiden Duale, Ali Hassan Joho, Wycliffe Oparanya, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Cleophas Malala, Nick Salat, William Kamket, Junet Mohammed. So apparently they are the fierce, loyal, foot soldiers of some of these politicians. And the story is on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. Gideon, Uhuru and Raila are part of OKA. The story is on page 8 of the Standard. Ethiopia Prime Minister talks staff. The story is on page 37. Safaricom will not be punished. The story is on page 25. So that is what we have on the front page of the front pages of our leading newspapers this morning. So before we start in the conversation, I'd like to bring in my panelists, and we are joined this morning by Sharon Gitonga from Nairobi. Sharon, good morning. We can't hear you, but I suppose it could be a problem on our part. So once it's fixed, I think we'll be able to get to hear what you. All right. So could you? We can't hear you. Just hold on. We apologize for that. So as they look at that, maybe I bring in Jevan Karanja. Jevan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Miriam, and good morning to our viewers and my fellow panelists. Thanks for having me on the show this morning. All
right, let's try it one more time, Sharon. Good morning.
Miriam, can you hear me now?
Yes, I think it was on our part. Good morning to you. We apologize for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning. Right at the headquarters in Nairobi, my co-panelist, Samuel Tawish and Jevan Karanja, and to all our viewers watching us, whether it's their morning, afternoon, or evening in Africa and across the globe. It is a pleasure to be part of this morning show. Good morning.
Good morning, and I think we also do have Samuel Tawish. I don't know if he has joined yet. Tawish, good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning to my colleague panelist, Sharon Gitonga, Jevan Karanja, and all our viewers watching this program in Africa and across the globe.
All right, so let's just get into the conversation this morning. Gideon, Uhuru, and Raila are part of One Kenya Alliance. So let's see how that, what Gideon Moi, Senator for Baringo, said on page 8 of the Standard newspaper. Baringo Senator Gideon Moi says the One Kenya Alliance, OKA, is not a lightweight coalition. The KANU chairman warned those chest thumping that they will be in for a shock come next year's election. He maintained that KANU's alliance with Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper Party ANC of Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula's Ford Kenya, and Cyrus Jirongo's United Democratic Party was a formidable force. The senator said the coalition was also working with President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga. KANU made a decision: we will have a presidential candidate. We have friends. We are in with Kalonzo, Wetangula, Musalia, Jirongo. Uhuru and Raila are also with us. We are not lightweight, he said, likening the leaders to top-level Premier League football players. So President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga are part of One Kenya Alliance. Sharon Gitonga.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And when Gideon talks about those who are chest stamping, I thought actually there are people in his own camp, that is, Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka. They're the ones who have, lately been chest stamping. And from where I sit, I still think they are actually a lightweight because there's so much Cold War in Oka and its team members. I think they are so good at giving what we call empty rhetoric and less of, getting work done and getting into an arena of action. So as far as we are concerned, and from where I sit, they should not consider themselves being heavyweight because there's very less that has actually been done. When I look at Musalia right now, as we speak, he cannot actually be entrusted with actually the intelligence and information of the country, because you realize that in one way or another, recently he just went out to just say what they had actually conversed with the president. Are they not the same people that actually said the president was trying to convince them to actually back the former prime minister? So for me, I'm actually tending to see all these being disingenuous, especially coming from Gideon and the Oka team at large. I don't know. For us to actually take them serious, let them start actually by declaring the presidential candidate amongst themselves. We cannot have a party with all the four principles actually contending to be the president. Let them start, by declaring one of who is actually going to be the president among them. Because it's Cold War between the scripts in Oka. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sharon, for that. And you've pointed out clearly the leadership in One Kenya Alliance could be reading from different scripts, but now according to Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, Jevan Karanja is saying, don't just look at us like this. We are not lightweight, as some of you might think, because we do have other members. That will include our opposition leader Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta himself. What are you hearing Gideon to be saying?
Yeah, thank you very much, Miriam. And we have been hearing the Oka saying different things from the same mouth. Therefore, I will not be surprised if they also say that the president and the former prime minister are part of the Raja One Kenya Alliance. But what I'm seeing Gideon saying is like they have no problem working with the former Prime Minister. They have no problem maybe trying to get President Uhuru Kenyatta support them. I think that is the coded message or the innuendo kind of a declaration that the Senator Gideon Moi is making. But all said and done, we are not saying that the One Kenya Alliance are lightweight, as Gideon Moi is saying. We are not saying that from a point of confusion. We are saying it because in politics, it's a game of numbers. It's your political numerical strength that speaks louder. Therefore, when we look at their strength, numerical strength, we don't see them being in that level where they can push for a 3-horse race. Because when we have tried Musalia Mudavadi, we have tried Kalonzo Musyoka at the ballot, but the numbers they pulled, they were very low. Therefore, that's some of the reasons why we feel like they are not yet to be in that level where we can take them seriously compared to deputy president, compared to what former prime minister is doing. These guys have a long way to go unless they get some support. And I have said this, OCA will remain irrelevant until President Uhuru Kenyatta, until former Prime Minister maybe supports one of them publicly and declares that maybe Musalia Tosha or Kalonzo Musyoka Tosha. I think that is the time they can revive themselves politically and they can get some votes. Because when Raila says Tosha, he will come with a block of votes and he'll add on their ballot. If President Uhuru Kenyatta happens to give them the state blessings and they call them the systems, maybe that is the time they can have some kind of seriousness. But for now, they need to work on some few things, and that is to go on the ground, Miriam. We have not seen these guys campaign. They are all over saying what former Prime Minister failed to do. They are all over castigating the deputy president, but they are not telling us what they will do better than what President Uhuru Kenyatta has done, what former Prime Minister did when he was the Prime Minister, but also they are not telling us what they did when they were in big positions, when Kalonzo Musyoka was the vice president, when Musalia Mudavadi was the minister of finance and labor and other ministries. They are not telling us what they did so that we can write from their history and maybe prepare for a better future if they get to office. Therefore, they also need to work on their strategy and how they do these things. Because in politics, you cannot just wait to be endorsed. You need to go out there and prove that if endorsed, really you can make to State House.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jevan. And just to be fair, I think OKA leaders have been trying to go out there and speak to Wananchi and hold this rally. So they've been trying to really place themselves out there for Kenyans to decide. But the KANU chairman...
Where did they go? I think on Sunday they were in Githurai. From there, I've not seen anything.
Well, yesterday Gideon was in he was in Pokot, and guess what church he visited? Your church inaitwa Dini ya Roho Mafuta Pole ya Africa Church. It's a wonderful church somewhere in Pokot, so he was there. But hold on, the KANU chairman warned those chest thumping that they will be in for a shock come next year's elections. And so when you hear that, Tawish, and then you hear him say Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta are backing a part of One Kenya Alliance, actually that is what he said. So who should we trust in this One Kenya Alliance with all this rhetorics? All of them seems to put forth, and none of them seems to be, the same.
Thank you so much, Miriam, and thank you for that question. I'll attempt to be very brief, Miriam. One is that what I hear Gideon Moi to be saying is that they are not ruling out the possibility of working in the coalition that President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga are trying to form. That is the one message that he's trying to send out there. Another point I'm trying to get from what Gideon Moi is trying to say is that One Kenya Alliance is already part and parcel of the larger coalition that Uhuru Kenyatta, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and the One Kenya Alliance have been having behind the scene as a secret or a hidden card. I'm saying so because, Miriam, there could be a possibility that One Kenya Alliance is still part of the former NASA, working alongside Raila Odinga with the blessing of President Uhuru Kenyatta, but they have chosen to appear like they are not reading from the same script, like they are campaigning on their own, like each of them really want to get to the ballot. But by the end of the day, because politics more often is also a game of perception, they want to see maybe to bring and converge all these leaders to come together, maybe in the long run, so that it is felt outside here from the public perception that all this team has decided to work together, maybe to rally behind former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Miriam, in politics, there's what is called the psychological rigging, because as we speak today, already people, when you listen to analysts, political pundits, they say, if Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, Gideon, and let me say Cyrus Jirongo and others work together, of course, with the blessing of the state machinery, that nothing really will hinder them from taking over the presidency come next year. So in essence, these leaders really know it too well. They're trying to test the waters. They are listening to the voice of the people. They're trying to see the kind of persuasion and which kind of the political divide really among the leading presidential candidates has the biggest chances of winning this coming election. But you can quite read and understand from Gideon Moi that it is only the body which is in Oka as we speak, but his soul actually is with Raila Odinga, or whatever kind of coalition that Jubilee and ODM are trying to form. So in itself, like I predicted earlier, I still insist, Miriam, maybe come the 9th of December, we're likely going to see some, if not all of the One Kenya Alliance principles really declared support for Raila Odinga presidency. And I think that will be the only way for them, because as it is, One Kenya Alliance, if they went without the support of either Deputy President William Ruto or former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, they're actually doomed to fail, Miriam. They do not have any chance of actually making it to the presidency. So they have no choice, but the only choice is to work together with other formidable forces. And in this case, I believe it is Raila Amolo Odinga.
All right.
I submit.
Thank you so much. And I wish you were like the Swahili expert, in this panel. Could you translate this, the name of this church in English? Dini ya Roho Mafuta Pole ya Africa Church.
Miriam, that is tricky for me. I can't quite make a translation of that. Dini ya Mafuta Rohoni?
Roho Pole.
Dini ya Mafuta?
I think Roho Pole ya Africa.
No. I cannot even attempt, because my colleague panelists and those who are watching might end up laughing at me to the end of this show, Miriam.
All right. So thank you so much. So we turn our attention now to the Star newspaper, and the main headline on the Star newspaper this morning: Iron Lady at heart of 2022 poll battle. She is being fronted as Mount Kenya Queen Pin and Deputy President. A quiet but strong push is underway to have Martha Karua take over as President Uhuru Kenyatta's successor as the undisputed Mount Kenya Kingpin. The plan would also make Karua a former Justice Minister, a running mate to one of the top contenders in the 2022 presidential contest. A hint at Karua's elevation was first given by President Kenyatta's technical assistant, Mutahi Ngunyi. Ngunyi is an influential figure in Uhuru's inner circle, and Karua should deputize Raila in the contest against Deputy President William Ruto. He branded the ticket Rarua. Okay, that even sounds very violent. It's that putting those two acronyms together. Now maybe there is only one man in Gema who can fix William Ruto, and that man is Martha Karua. Is Martha Karua the man for the job? Sharon Gitonga, in quotes.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And for me, from where I actually tend to disagree, because I believe we have better people. For me, I find Martha Karua, I believe she actually bungled, during, Kibaki's tenure, she openly disrespected her. And if you also read through the lines, and I think Professor Jared actually alluded to that yesterday, of when you listen to her talks, she's actually always bitter with the president. And for me, her character is questionable. So from where I sit, I don't really think she's actually fit for being the vice president, and rather she's actually serious about this. It's high time she actually leaves hotel politics and gets actually into the grassroots, because at the end of the day, the people will have to decide, and the people have a higher stake when it comes to the elections. So for me, I think her character is quite questionable on this. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, but we do know that as much as she has disagreed and a lot of times with the decisions in President Uhuru Kenyatta's government, and also the former President Mwai Kibaki to a certain degree, but that is just part of politics. Who would have thought Raila Odinga will be working with President Uhuru Kenyatta today? But it is working, and I think President Kenyatta came out and said a couple of months ago that gives him a lot of peace. At night. He sleeps very well because of that, working relation and the friendship that he has built with a former prime minister and opposition leader. So in politics, anything is possible, but would Martha Karua be the man for the job when it comes to delivering the votes from Mount Kenya? Javan Karanja.
Thank you very much, Miriam. One thing that I would point out is when you talk of great leaders in Mount Kenya region, especially women in leadership, you cannot have two names without mentioning the name of Martha Karua, because he has come out as a very strong woman. He has championed for a cause, is a woman of integrity, and is a woman who is so principled. I don't think in this country there is any other politician who is principled like Martha Karua. If you cross his lanes, he will just disagree with you, whether you are the president, whoever you are in this country. And we saw it with the Grand Coalition government when he was the minister of the Constitution and Justice Affairs, something. And we have also seen it in Mount Kenya region, especially here in local politics and regional politics, when President Kenyatta was urging every politician, every party leader to vote their parties and join the larger Jubilee party. Martha Karua maintained that he will maintain his Kenya party to the end. And he used that party to run for Kirinyaga gubernatorial seat. And she almost clinched the position. Therefore, on that, I agree with her that she's a good woman in some of things that he does. But on this, I think Moses Kuria and the team, they have challenged her, maybe they have given her a challenge of a lifetime, because now they are pushing her to be a running mate of whoever a presidential candidate, either William Ruto or former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And Martha Karua has said it not once, that he can't work with William Ruto. But Miriam, we know in politics, things maybe in one way or the other, we might find them working together, and maybe in future. But as per now, Martha Karua has maintained that he can't work with the deputy president. Therefore, he is most likely to work with the former prime minister. But when you look at the people who surround the prime minister, we don't see the face of Martha Karua. When you go to the people who surround the deputy president, we don't see the face of Martha Karua. Therefore, it is high time, if she is the one who is willing, if he is not being forced to be a presidential, a deputy, a running mate, she needs to go step out of her comfort zone and come out and now start going around with this presidential candidate, so that people can start seeing her potential, because we know her potential in ministerial positions, as a member of parliament, but we have not seen her go around the country campaigning to be a running mate of whoever presidential candidate. Therefore, I think Moses Kuria, they're just pushing her maybe for their other personal interest. But for Martha Karua, she has maintained that she will run for Kirinyaga gubernatorial position. He will give it a second trial. Therefore, I don't know where they are getting all this, because we have not seen Martha Karua associate herself with these big politicians, William Ruto and Raila Odinga. And when you look at Raila Odinga, he already have a team of the likes of Peter Kenneth, Peter Munya, Kanini Kega, and the Mount Kenya governors. When you look at William Ruto, he has the likes of Rigathi Gachagua and others who are his point men in Mount Kenya region. Therefore, Martha Karua has maintained a low political stand when it comes to to the national politics, and she concentrates more on Kirinyaga politics. I think those people who did that headline, they're just writing from what Moses Kuria said, but they have not gone ahead to ask Martha Karua whether she is ready to run for to be a running mate of these big politicians.
All right. Very well, thank you so much, Jevan. However, it has now emerged that Karua is being eyed by a number of political players, including Bruto and ANC boss Musalia Mudavadi, Gatundu South Member of Parliament Moses Kuria, like you've said there, Jevan, told the Star that Karua is the only candidate with the capacity to vigorously fight for Mount Kenya's interest. Kuria said he supports Karua to succeed Uhuru as the region's political chieftain and as the country's second in command in the next government. Samuel Tawish, I mean, Martha Karua, you can't mention the politics in this country, especially the women politicians and the women leaders, and leave the name of Martha Karua. She has certainly paid her dues.
Thank you, Miriam. It is not in dispute, indeed, Miriam, that Martha Karua has projected herself, one, as a principled and a distinguished lawyer and politician. And looking onto her past, of course, performance as Member of Parliament for Gishugu constituency, and also as a member of the cabinet, particularly serving in the justice docket, one can quite say that Martha Karua has built a very formidable credential to be able to really to be able to be an asset or even bring in capital for anyone who want to contest presidency. Also looking onto the Mount Kenya voting basket. Miriam, they say that where there's smoke, there's fire, and when you hear all these political pundits really make suggestions that maybe Martha Karua is fit to deputize any of the serious presidential candidates, this is not just street talk. It's something that has been discussed behind the scene, is something that has been talked in boardroom meetings, and they're just trying to bring out the names so that they can test the waters and get to understand what is the reception, what is the feeling of the people out here in respect to the potential running mate to the serious presidential contenders. That is why you see they're dangling out the name of Peter Kenneth, they're giving the name of Peter Munya, they're giving the name of Muturi, the current Speaker of the National Assembly. They're giving the name of the current governor for Laikipia. They're giving the name of William Kabogo and other politicians who really come from central Kenya, Miriam. I think basically what these leaders are trying to do, or the operatives behind this kind of idea, is to bring out these names to see what is the reception, what is the reaction of the people. In fact, even as we continue to discuss now, don't be surprised that there could be people really sitting somewhere, really listening to this kind of discussion, just trying to get what is the perception out here about the image and the person of Martha Karua or Peter Kenneth or Peter Munya or any of these people from Mount Kenya. Miriam, you can't quite rule out the fact that there's a possibility that Mount Kenya as well, much as they are settling for a running mate position in as far as next administration is concerned, they will also want to get someone who can easily be pushed over. You understand, last time when One Kenya Alliance was having the meeting in a Nairobi hotel with Mount Kenya Foundation, they did come out and mention the name of Martha Karua being an iron lady affirming to that position and being a formidable woman, a woman among men, a man among women, such kind of things. And also the other time when we are having Mashujaa Day celebrations in Kirinyaga, the home county of Martha Karua, you had rightly Raila Odinga coming out in his speech and even saying that Martha Karua is one of the heroines or the shujas that should be celebrated in this country. You want to tell me that it was just by coincidence that all this is happening? You want to tell me that there was no any other person from the larger Mount Kenya or Kirinyaga to be particular who Raila Odinga would have said is another shuja? Don't also forget that Martha Karua has been in the history of the reform agenda in this country. She participated in the second liberation in this country. And alongside Raila Odinga, they can make a very good combination. I am sure the people on the other side of the political divide, more so maybe those who support Raila Odinga, may develop goosebumps and a feeling that if you brought in Martha Karua, she is a person who is principled, a person who sometimes is rigid, a person when she takes a stand, she lives by it. I mean, she's a person who is resolute and steadfast in whatever kind of thing she believes in. And therefore, for the other people on the other side of the divide, she may not necessarily be an ideal person, but from Mount Kenya, there could be that general feeling that this is the person we want. We do not want just a person who's going to be a pushover, a person who is just to be remote control or micromanage. We want a person who can also speak their own mind, a person who can stand for the rights and the interests of the people of Mount Kenya, if not the entire country. And that is why you see the name of Martha Karua keeps on cropping in every other time. Miriam, I submit.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Ford Kenya is in turmoil as rebels hold parallel meetings today, but I think we've had enough of politics. With the remaining time, let's look at another news that was found to be very interesting last night, and I see it has been captured on page 7 of the Star newspaper. A traffic police officer on a 38,000 Kenya shillings a month gross pay has surrendered 26 million Kenya shillings bribes cash he collected from motorist Jamal Bari Mohammed. Was employed on August 31st, 1996. He was stationed at Thika Patrol Base as a rider, earning a gross salary of 35,770 per month. At the time the case was being investigated, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission was able to establish that between July 1st, 2010 and September 30th, 2016, Jamal made cash and mkesho deposits of 43.4 million Kenya shillings in his various bank accounts. EACC subsequently obtained preservation orders to freeze 26,193,071 held in his Equity Bank Limited Thika Supreme branch. The order was obtained on October 14, 2016. 4 years later, Jamal made an initial proposal for a negotiated settlement. He made several other proposals, but they were not accepted until July this year by Justice James Wakiaga. Jamal made a proposal to surrender the entire amount of 26,193,071 shillings frozen in his Equity Bank account. His request was approved and the suit was marked as settled. But a couple of years ago, remember what the EACC found in his account? 43.4 million Kenya shillings, but he surrendered about 26 million Kenya shillings. I'm sure we all watched this news yesterday. This officer has an income of 38,000 Kenya shillings. I need such account that just multiplies money in my account. But apparently he's been getting this money as bribes from motorists, and we see what they do on these roads. Sharon.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And it's quite unfortunate that, this police case is just a tip of an iceberg. These policemen really harass people, and especially motorists. I think at some point one actually stopped us and was asking for, I think, a fire extinguisher or something. So and if you're not in a position to produce that, you definitely have to chuck in quite a good amount of money. So this is quite unfortunate. How many other people, how many other policemen have actually held millions and millions of money from us, and I think moving forward, it's actually we can have actually more people volunteering, because you realize when we talk about the fight against corruption and the commitment towards fighting corruption, it is actually incumbent upon every other person. It is a collective responsibility for each and every person. So if we can have more people actually voluntarily voluntarily giving whatever they have stolen from people, I think this country is going to go a long way. And I think that is what I can say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Javan Karanja, it means that if EACC and DCI and DPP decide to really go after such cases, it is possible, one, to recover such illegal money and also public funds that we see getting lost on a daily basis. But what does this say about our police force, which we already know ranks among the most corrupt, officers in this country?
Miriam, the police force in this country is the epitome of the corruption. Because, you know, even when these guys get recruited to this unit, the first thing they do is to bribe the officers so that you can get the job. Therefore, a job that is founded on corruption, it will be maintained by corruption and corruption alone. That is why I find most of these police officers are busy trying to recover the amount of money that they use to bribe so that to buy the job. And Miriam, I think we need to do something and ensure that the police, because constitutionally they're supposed to maintain law and order, but when they engage in those kind of dubious activities, what they're doing, they're breaking the law that they're supposed to be upholding. Therefore, I think we need to be rigorous. We need to be serious and rigorous when fighting this corruption. And I think is from that event, it's clear that something can be done, and we can really achieve quite a lot, and we can recover a huge amount of money that has gone to individual pockets through these corruption activities. And I think this shows that if we come together, if we pull all the agencies that are supposed to fight corruption and we empower them, and all Kenyans decide that it's a done deal, and we come out, fight this monster together as a country, then we can achieve a lot. And on spared when it comes to fight corruption. And those kind of police officers, they need to face the law, and they need to be taken to prison so that they serve as an example to others who might want to engage on those activities. But on the same note, I think we as Wananchi and citizenry, we are also encouraging, we are also giving our police officers an environment where this corruption thrives, because when they are on our roads, your car is not well maintained. What you do, instead of asking them or going to do your car what's supposed to be done, the insurance and other things, you bribe them with 1,000 and you buy your way. Therefore, that is how we end up having all these activities. Therefore, it's upon Kenyans to make sure that they don't neglect what they are supposed to do, and to our police, they need to uphold the law. If we can all do what we're supposed to do, then I see we can fight this thing, and we can have a successful country where we can thrive without really relying on these bribes and other kind of mischievous
All right. And I think the other day, the chairperson of the public service vehicles, I think he came out and he was complaining about the same. Was it on Monday? I think he said, motorists are suffering so much because the police, they are demanding for that bribe as it's part of their right, and we see it on our roads every day. Is there a way that this vice can be eradicated here in the country, Tawish? And as Jevan there has pointed, Kenyans seems to have been complacent, and we are also to blame for encouraging this bad behavior.
Yes, Miriam. As they say, Miriam, it takes two to tango, and that is why if I have to allude to what you have said, that indeed the members of the public, we also have really a share of blame in as far as this is concerned, bribery and the instances of corruption in our country that is now deep-rooted in our society, Miriam. Because without you giving these officers the bribe, they cannot be able to get it from anywhere. So they stand condemned as much as we do, because again, we are the ones who are actually allowing or perpetuating this vice really to flourish amongst us, Miriam. That said, I think it is important also for the relevant government agencies to carry out a very serious audit of all our officers, because again, Miriam, this could just be a tip of the iceberg. We could be having so many of such cases, or even worse, amidst us, people who are taking the advantage of the vulnerability of the people, the road users, and the ignorance of members of the public, really to siphon these monies from unsuspecting, of course, members of the public. So it is very important that we can also have a mechanism where we can do a thorough audit and lifestyle to be specific, so that we can get to understand how come a person who is earning a paltry 35 or 38,000 Kenya shillings a month, when they have other responsibility, other bills to cater for, can end up having a record, say 40 or 50 million Kenya shillings in their account, Miriam. So these are the things we really want to see these officials or these officers come out and be able to authenticate on, or rather actualize to us how they ended up getting all that money in no time. Miriam, there's also another perspective that Javan Karanja has brought in, and I would want to really firm it up, that more often these officers come or get recruited through corrupt means. They get to pay their way to employment, and they just get to understand that this is the way of life. So, I mean, this is a culture that has become more inculcated amongst us, and it may not be very easy really to get rid of it. It needs a well-concerted effort from all and sundry, Miriam, for us really to get a zero tolerance on corruption and bribery as a country today. But this case is very, very unfortunate, and I think it just exemplifies really what kind of society we are. And the reason why, Miriam, today you go to our roads and you get, for example, matatu operators hiking hiking fares without notice, hiking fares without any reason, it's because of such kind of bribes, because they know by the end of the day, they'll have to part with a few coins giving out to police officers or the traffic officers in the form of these bribes, Miriam. Also, when you look into, for example, the causes of road accidents, someone is driving a roadworthy vehicle and they give out a few coins, they're allowed to proceed with the journey. Someone is overloading, they give a few coins to traffic officers and they're allowed to proceed with the journey. Someone is actually someone is not qualified to drive, or do not have a driving license, or even do not have insurances. I mean, Miriam, when you look into all these aspects, it boils down to that aspect of bribery and corruption. By the end of the day, we get accidents, people lose their lives, we get injuries in our roads simply because of such kind of loopholes and exemptions that our police officers allow. But also, as I finalize, Miriam, it is important for the Ministry of Interior in particular also to look into the living standards and the remuneration of our police officers. Is it something that is enough really to cater for their needs? That's the question we should be asking. Because if it's not enough, then they will have to devise other means of getting more money, even if it means being bribed by members of the public. And by the end of the day, we will be having, of course, a lot of criminal activities taking place in amidst us. Even terrorism can get its way amongst us simply because the police officers have been compromised, and these are the people we look up to provide us with security. So I think it is also a very big indictment on part of the Ministry of Interior to really be able to look into the remuneration of our officers. Mm-hmm. I submit, Miriam.
All right. And since that complaint that was made by the chairperson of the Public Service Vehicles Association, I've been trying to monitor the roads coming to work in the morning, and the police officers were notorious for taking bribes. They seems to now just do their job. They're back to just manning the junctions and the roads, and they're not taking any more bribes. I don't know, they just took a breather so that the matter can lie, and then they'll come back to their bad behavior. I don't know, but I've seen there's been a change for the last 2 days. I've been trying to see if at all.
I think you talk about Nairobi. I wish you just walk outside Nairobi, and it is the order of the day.
I know.
Something that
yes.
There's something that I wish about culture, and it's quite unfortunate. We as Kenyans, we've actually taken up, corruption and bribery as a culture, and it is something that we've actually taken it. Like we have actually normalized, and it's not just in the police sector. You see, even in other institutions, if you want to, you have to, bribe for you to get your way up there, and it's quite unfortunate.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Sharon, I agree with you in totality. Now let's look at, turn our attention to the Daily Nation, and we look at a story on page 10. almost 90% of severely ill COVID-19 patients in hospitals across the country have one thing in common. They are not vaccinated. The Ministry of Health says out of the more than 500 cases that were admitted, more than 400 were unvaccinated. As for the critically ill patients, also, almost all of them have not been vaccinated against the virus. All the hospitals have now been advised to keep vaccination records of patients they admit so that the government can keep tabs on the virus. The ministry has set up a monitoring and evaluation team working with epidemiologists from the University of Nairobi who will establish a national database of COVID-19 hospital admissions based on vaccination history. So this should be a warning enough to Kenyans who are still very reluctant to go get their jabs. I will not ask today if you've been vaccinated, Sharon. It's okay. But this should be something that should motivate Kenyans to go out and really get vaccinated to have a better boost on your immune system in case you even get the COVID-19.
Miriam, I didn't quite get. I think at some point you mute, your audio went mute. I didn't quite get the question.
I'm saying according to the new data from our hospitals, a huge number of people who are in ICUs and who are critically ill have not been vaccinated. 400 out of 500 patients people who have not been vaccinated. And for those who have been vaccinated, there seems to be, after COVID, there seems to be responding very well to treatment. So I was just thinking that this should be a warning sign, to Kenyans who are still quite reluctant about going out there to get vaccinated. And as we all know, we have enough vaccine right now in the country.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for not asking if I have actually been vaccinated or.
Well, I was hoping you'll just volunteer the information, if at all you weren't. But
yes. Also, I don't know why, but I think it's actually should ring a bell to Kenyans at large, and especially right now. That economy has actually been opened up, and businesses are actually getting back to normality, and everything has actually gotten back to normalcy. So it should actually ring a bell for people that we are actually not out of the woods yet, by the virtue that our life has actually gotten back to normal, and people should actually get vaccinated because this is actually going to boost the immune system. Thank you.
Okay. So now, in one of the hospitals in Nairobi, 4 people were yesterday admitted to the intensive care unit. All of them were unvaccinated. Most of the patients who are currently we are admitting in our ICU are unvaccinated. A good number have either not taken the jab at all or have only taken one dose, said the nurse in charge. Of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released a study showing that unvaccinated people are 29 times more likely to be hospitalized from severe COVID-19. Javan, this should be a warning shot to Kenyans who are still reluctant to go have I don't know if you've had your jab yet.
Miriam, I took my jab and I'm waiting to take my second jab so that I can be fully armed to fight this enemy called COVID-19. Mm-hmm. But Miriam, I don't know the problem we have with Kenyans because for quite time we have seen people even die of COVID-19, and those were signs enough to get Kenyans go vaccinated. But yet we have seen a good number of people go get this jab. But I think we also need protect ourselves because the government has not said that we are COVID-free. We are still fighting this disease. But when you go around the country, especially after the suspension of curfew, we have seen people go around just mingling, just doing their business without much care. Therefore, we need also to be much careful and watchful as Kenyans so that we can protect ourselves. But the most important thing, and the most surest way to protect ourselves is to go get the jab because it will boost our immunity. And in the eventuality that we get COVID-19, then we'll be able to fight and we will not suffer. We will not go to that stage of severe illness or to death. I think there's a reason. There are reasons enough. And from what we are reading from the paper, it is clear that those people have not gotten the jab, or those who have gone for their first dose, they are the most affected. Their cases are severe. They are most vulnerable compared to those who have gotten the two doses. I think it is high time as Kenyans, let's go get vaccinated so that we can protect ourselves. Because when we can have like 80% of Kenyans vaccinated, I don't see if we have any reasons to worry, because the rest might be protected by those who are vaccinated. Because when you get vaccinated, you not only protect yourself, but you protect others around you, especially the young people and our kids and the elderly in the society.
Oh, all right, Veeral, thank you so much. And through that report and that observation from our health facilities, those who have not been vaccinated and those who went for their first jab and refused to go for their second jab. You know, Kenyans are very peculiar people. You know that you're supposed to go back to to have your second jab for you to be completely, to be safer. You know, but others went for their first jabs. Sindano ndo ilikuwa chungu, so they refused to go back, and so it just doesn't make sense at all. But that is the situation. Savolts, I wish this new information should encourage Kenyans to go and get vaccinated, and perhaps the government can reach its target by the end of the year.
Well, Miriam, I think it is time we got to appreciate that we are fighting a very mysterious disease in the name of COVID-19. And given that it's mysterious is something that we cannot take for granted, that we all need to pull up our efforts and make sure that we can be able to fight this particular pandemic. Miriam, that said, today it's very devastating that people feel like because President Uhuru Kenyatta has lifted the curfew, of course, the economy has been opened up. People can go about their normal businesses. And they feel like maybe even the disease is really the disease has been completely contained. This is not like maybe the war or to protect, say, the waters in the Indian Ocean that you will physically take there, the armed forces to protect against invasion by Somalia. This is a mysterious disease that you cannot quite tell when and how you are going to get infected or how it's going to catch up with you. The only thing is that we have to go by the Ministry of Health protocol or guidelines, if you like, so that we can be able to protect ourselves and protect our loved ones from getting infected from this particular, of course, virus, Miriam. Today, you will realize even in the streets that people do not want even to put on their mask. They will only put on their mask if they see that there is a law enforcer ahead of them. That's when they feel like, then I need to put up my mask for fear of being arrested. So it is like we fear being arrested more than contracting this particular virus, Miriam. So how come that you cannot just put on your mask? How come that you do not just want to sanitize? Even in places where of course, sanitizing is provided for free. You do not want to wash your hands even when there's water at your disposal. People get to their homes out of their busy day schedules during their day-long activities outside, and they do not even consider really washing their hands. So, Miriam, what am I trying to say in essence? That we should take this virus very seriously. It is not about any other person. It is not about government. It's not about the police. It is not about being fearing really to be arrested. But the first fear that should drive you really to adhere to the MOH protocol is the fear of getting infected and infecting your loved ones. And if it has been established really by taking the jab that you increase your immunity and decrease the chances of getting infected, why don't you do so? If at all you love yourself and you love your kins, you love those who are around you, and also you love your country, why don't you do this? Because individually, we will collectively, at our individual capacity and whatever we do, minimally, we'll be able to collectively win the war against this particular disease. So it's quite encouraging that indeed the people who have taken the jab are responding well, and that it has been established by the practitioners, health experts, that anyone who has taken the jab so far, their immunity has been boosted, And of course, even the chances of contracting this virus becomes so minimal. So I think this should ring into the minds of the people who haven't quite taken the job to understand that it's not a superiority complex, superiority war between you and government or President Uhuru Kenyatta or the Ministry of Health. It's about you and your health. If you want to take it for granted, like Mutahi Kagwe has always said, you want to treat this disease normally, it will certainly treat us abnormally. I submit to you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Okay, so now let's look at this other story very quickly. I think what is unfolding right now in Ethiopia that could have a ripple effect on Kenyans and Kenya. We might feel a heat of water, the spill of the conflict there in Ethiopia, and we had this conversation yesterday in the afternoon with Dr. David Matanga. So the latest, and this was from the government of Kenya, page 10 of the Daily Nation. The government has heightened security and vigilance along its borders and at critical installations in response to the fluid political situation in some neighboring countries. In a statement released yesterday, police spokesperson Bruno Shioso said this is aimed at cushioning the country from adverse effects of conflict. As an immediate neighbor to some of the affected countries, Kenya may be adversely impacted. Kenyans have been advised to exercise vigilance and caution in their surroundings and report suspected undocumented foreigners and unprocessed immigrants to the nearest police station. Ethiopia declared a state of emergency on Tuesday and asked residents to register their weapons and get ready to protect their neighborhoods following reports that Tigray's People's Liberation Front had captured 2 cities and was advancing towards the capital Addis Ababa. The country has been experiencing armed conflict and civil unrest as government forces battled Tigrayan rebels since last November. And I think they started battling 4th of November last year. So it's a year today. I think it's 1 year since that conflict started between the government of Ethiopia and the Tigrayan forces. Now, the United Nations has since called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and unrestricted humanitarian access to Tigray, Amara and Afar amid calls for a dialogue. So the possible consequences of a spiraling conflict on the country and the region are frightening to contemplate, but it is not too late to choose dialogue, said Rosemary DiCarlo, the Undersecretary for Political and Peace-Building Affairs. The situation in Ethiopia remains largely unpredictable, volatile and highly tense, with fears that more refugees might cross over into Kenya. The United States has issued travel advisories. Of course, even Kenya has started preparing with, of course, the United Nations to receive refugees in case there will be, and certainly from what is happening in Ethiopia, Kenya will shoulder that burden of giving safe haven like we've done in this region to the countries that have been in turmoil and have been unstable and have been, have had years of civil unrest in their countries. That will be South Sudan, Somalia. We have so many refugees from Rwanda, Burundi, from the previous wars and all that. And so that goes to, show also the importance of Kenya in this. I know we have our issues here, but at this point, we are that refuge of hope for some of these countries and some of these people from these countries. So Kenya, we are at a high alert. The price of war that we have to pay, even when we are not really involved there. Sharon Gitonga.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And I think what's actually happening in Ethiopia, by and large, right now we can say it's a dialogue that is actually going to settle this, because at the end of the day, the use of arms is not going to have any other way. There's a Swahili saying that says ndovu wawili wakipigana nyasi ndo humia, and in this case it's the people of Ethiopia who are actually going to lose largely. So it will also go a long way when we have shuttle diplomacy from probably other East African regions, and of course even the African Union to actually intervene, because otherwise we will actually continue having an influx of refugees. And you've seen what has happened before with Somalia, where we've actually hosted them for a very long time and actually given them humanitarian relief and so much sacrifices that we've done, but in turn we have actually gotten betrayal on a broad daylight So if I can also agree with what the president said yesterday, that no one is actually going to do this for them. At the end of the day, there's no amount or any amount of intervention or any persuasion that is going to work unless they have, the political will for them to actually end the crisis. So at the end of the day, I think it's a matter of, for them to actually be willing, and also a dialogue will actually go a long way to see the political and stability of Ethiopia. Thank you.
All right. At this point, I don't think Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is seeking any kind of dialogue. We saw him at the beginning of the week and even some weeks back, where he called on the young people of the country to be recruited quickly into the army of Ethiopia to help fight the TPLF, who right now have joined forces with the Oromo Liberation Army. So that's also very deadly, militia or armed group that has really made Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to be a very scared man, judging from how and the sentiments and how he's been sounding lately. And of course, earlier this week, he told the citizens who have arms to go register them, and others who could be armed to go get arms to help the government fight. So he very much so is sounding like a man who is almost under siege or a very worried, leader of a country. And so when you hear him talk like that, I don't think this is a person that is willing and ready for a dialogue. And also the TPLF have said, we are not going to talk to the government of Abiy Ahmed. We will fight until we are able to capture, Addis Ababa. And as we sit here, we know that will be our headquarters, because the African Union is situated in Addis Ababa, and the African Union yesterday issued a statement, and I can't go through it right now. But Javan Karanja, this is worrying for us right now in this region, and there are reasons, Kenyans should worry about what is happening in Ethiopia.
Yes, Miriam, there are reasons enough for us to worry as a country, because we have seen when we had our neighbors, Somali, fight and go into insecurity, insurgents. We also suffered as well. We had the refugees come to our country. We had escalating cases of terrorism and other insecurity, even escalating to our country. Therefore, what is happening in Ethiopia is not an exception. We might see we have our refugees coming. We have people running for their lives coming to our country. Therefore, to some extent, our social amenity will be strained to cater for.
Okay, we seem to be having a problem from your side, Javan. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, I think we've lost Javan there, but Samuel Tawish, just conclude for us on this matter.
Thank you, Miriam. It's unfortunate what is happening in Ethiopia today, and I think, like you just said, that government forces, of course, as well as the rebels, to blame really for the escalating violence that is taking place in Ethiopia 1 year down the line. Indeed, Miriam, it's a very big letdown from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed from the time he took over, when there was like a relief and a ray of hope that finally was going to stabilize that particular country and even bring about stability and tranquility in that country after a long period of turmoil that existed before. But as the situation is, Miriam, I think there's one thing you have really pointed out, the price of war. And this should send warning signals to other nations around the continent that indeed it is important really to remain patriotic to your nation. It is indeed very important to ensure that we safeguard the tenets of peace and stability. Because again, today you are enjoying your life and enjoying your stay in your country. But tomorrow, within no time, you end up losing your own country and you lose your own dignity. You start but only running for your dear life, Miriam. This is something that is very unfortunate. So often when people are being told to be on the wall, to be on the lookout, to ensure that we do not utter or act in a manner that really might necessitate violence or chaos, people think like this is just another street talk. People take it for granted. But look at what is happening in Ethiopia today. So many lives have been lost. So many people are internally displaced in their very own country. A lot of property has been destroyed, and nothing is coming into semblance of peace. That violence and chaos continues as we speak today. In fact, it is escalating with every elapsing minute. And even the other countries, the neighboring countries like Kenya, have already issued alerts and they have already closed their borders, I think along Moyale, if I'm not wrong. What does it then tell you? That when you hear people speak about why it is important to ensure that we have peace, more often we take it for granted. But when we are faced with such kind of situations is when you get to understand really that peace is a very important and vital component. So I want to appeal that we cannot leave Ethiopia to go down the drain, that there's still some hope. We can have, of course, the interventions from other organs locally and internationally to see into it how stability can be restored in that particular region. And as well, Miriam, I think Eritrea should also be retrained from actually interfering with internal affairs in Ethiopia, because to a large extent is what has also contributed and bolstered the morale of the Tigrayans really to continue fighting the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, because they feel that Prime Minister Abiy has gone in bed with the leader of Eritrea, that is Isaias Afwerki, and to them, this is a person they treat as an enemy, quote unquote. So I think they have to do things the right way so as to restore that peace and stability so that the people of Ethiopia can get back to their normal business. I submit, Miriam.
Okay, thank you so much. And of course, that is a story that we have continued to follow very closely. And I think if something is not really done very, very soon, we are seeing a making of another civil war in this continent, as if we don't have enough of this already. So hopefully a solution will be gotten whereby we'll not have any more casualties. And yesterday a report was released to the United Nations that showed that grave human rights abuses and rapes of all kinds have been taking place in Tigrayan region. So it's worrying what is happening there under our watch, and the world is just watching while a genocide is essentially taking place. A very sad turn of events there in Ethiopia. So hopefully a solution will be gotten very soon. Thank you so much, Samuel Tawish, Sharon Gitonga, and Javan Karanja for your time this morning. We shall come back at 11 a.m. with another conversation. This has been Good Morning Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good morning.